Thriving in today's fast-paced world of change and disruption requires innovation. Inside Outside Innovation is the podcast that explores the ins and outs of innovation with raw stories, real insights, and practical advice from the best and brightest in the world of startups and innovation. Each week, we'll bring you the latest ideas in lean startup, design thinking, corporate venture capital, and more. Now, let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Today we are going to have our part two of our interview with Daniele Dondi. He is the head of the innovation studio at ING based in Europe. Currently he's based in Spain, and he sits down with us in the second part to talk a little bit about some of the misperceptions of what it's like to run a corporate accelerator. So sit back, enjoy, listen, and let us know what you think, and let's go to the interview.
You mentioned in your article also about validation and running experiments and just the importance of getting through a lot of experiment cycles. Could you talk about the role that you put Lean Startup in within your accelerator?
Absolutely. So one of the key elements that we teach our participant of the accelerator is that you can't build something that nobody wants. And you never know when someone really wants something. And many times, if they tell you that they need a yellow Walkman, does not mean that they really need a yellow Walkman. And if you read my blog, then you know what I mean. So one of the critical elements of Lean Startup is customer validation. And this is what we try to push all the internal teams and also the external startups to do during the 6-month cycle. So try to validate that you have a real problem with customers that you really want to solve. And the key element here is don't build your product if you are unsure, not only that the customer likes it, but also that the customer will pay enough for your business case to be viable. Mm-hmm.
And you specifically mentioned the role of the specific experiment that you designed. Let's say we have a corporation or a startup. They're listening to this. They understand, of course, I need to test and my assumptions. I need to design experiments. But you kind of hinted that not all experiments are designed equally, right?
Experiment design, I think, is the skill of the present because it's something that is so difficult to build. I have seen a team that was able in 3 months to invalidate 22 different business model. It's an amazing speed of invalidation. And what I want to say is that experiment is really difficult. I mean, every experiment that you build, the first thing that you need to do is you need to grab customer attention, and that's already a challenge in today's world. So imagine when you want to build an online experiment, and not only you want people to pay attention to your experiment, but you also want people to engage in order for you to have quantifiable results. That's very, very difficult. And that's a skills that normal corporations don't have usually because they are used to validate their product after they are launched into the market when the brand is already there, or they're used with the more traditional marketing tools, which are focus group and survey, which is exactly the kind of customer discovery that we want to avoid because are the ones where you get the least quality out of the respondent. So we have seen that having experiment designed coaches which are external and therefore it needs to be paid, and these people are very expensive. It's necessary through the cycle in order to get validated results.
Daniele, you mentioned this phrase of using an outside experiment design coach. That's something we haven't heard as much, and it definitely shows a commitment to what you guys thought of good experimentation. Can you tell us a little bit more about these people, where you found them, or what they brought to the table?
Yes, so that's actually true because I wanted to explain experiment design to my colleague here in Spain. So I Google it, and the only thing that I could find was this guy in the lab that are trying to do save the world from cancer. So it's something that is absolutely new. So experiment design coaches, I found an external company which builds venture for corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the venture building, but mainly it's a corporation that tells you, I have a problem. And then an external company builds a startup around that. Mm-hmm. And if the corporation likes the solution, they buy the solution. If they don't, the startup is an independent startup.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that those guys apply Lean Startup themselves, and they found out that one of the skills that they had was to, validate very, very quickly hypothesis from corporation. And from there, it grew as a skills. How do you validate hypothesis? How do you validate if the customer that you're targeting really is a problem that is worth solving? And from that, they moved more into consulting, and now they are our preferred partner. And I can mention the name. They're called Firmhouse. It's a company based in Rotterdam, and they're very, very good in experiment design.
Excellent. Is there any specific advice that you gave to the participants in the studio or even the startups on how they could approach the Fab Four that you mentioned, right? Those corporate individuals to either garner their support or sponsorship or ability to be able to navigate some of the things that maybe were outside of their control?
I think that this is really the most important role, not of the team participants, but of the accelerator lead. So the guy that builds the accelerator needs to involve this function. They need to understand the approach. They need to be involved in the selection of the startup and in the selection of the internal teams. And they also need to feel a little bit responsible of the result. So that is the things to do. Number one. Regarding the participant, guys, don't get angry at them. I know a lot of people that were frustrated because this legal guy was really, slowing down the process, but he's trying to protect your company, actually. Mm-hmm. So he's there for a reason. Most probably, if you have a job, it's because in the past you saved your ass, right? So make sure that you understand their position and involve them from the beginning.
We talked a lot about getting the right people into the accelerator internally. And you talked about the role of the person leading the accelerator, but one of the kind of taboo things that people don't discuss is compensation and incentives, right? That come around that, because people, especially if it's a startup that's coming in there, they're compensated very differently than potentially a corporate employee who comes into an innovation group with a comfortable fat salary, if you will. Did you talk about or think about the roles that compensation or incentives play in how people either worked within that studio or even how you or the other leaders led that studio?
I think that this is a very, very hot topic. Luckily, from my side, I couldn't play a lot with it because there is a policy of ING that we don't give bonus to our internal employees, especially not in the function that I mentioned. So mm-hmm. Giving bonus was not an option. But of course, what I mentioned before about the upside, it's clearly different. If a startup is successful, the founder of the startups, they can get a real big financial upside. Mm-hmm. If an internal team is successful, well, the employee is most probably will get a promotion, but of course it's not comparable of of being the CEO of the next big thing. At the same time, the risks are also different.
Yes.
The startup guys, they really eat pizzas every evening, and they share an apartment, while the ING employees still have a salary at the end of the month. So I think that more or less compensation is not the driving force. The driving force is really the motivation of the internal employees to create something new that can really change the life, if you want, of our customers. So finding these people is important because the financial motivation is, it's not that strong, and I don't believe, at least for internal employees, in motivating them with financial compensation.
Excellent. Daniele, in your article, one of the interesting points that you said was that a customer-validated solution with great potential resting in the backlog, waiting for a sponsor, might happen. And sometimes you may have a product that's not as good that will go live, whereas a great product who doesn't have a sponsor might not go live. Talk us through a little bit more about that dynamic and how important the sponsorship is within a corporation.
Teams needs to consider their sponsor as if they were investors, right? The investors, of course, they're looking for a return, but not all the return is equal. So they also need to think about which kind of problem are you solving for your sponsor. And you need to consider that if you change the scope of your solution, most probably you need to ask yourself as well, am I still adding value to my sponsor or not?
I think the last thing I would like to talk about is a little bit, so you've actually created and run a corporate accelerator. What kind of words of advice would you have for other corporations maybe listening to this podcast, thinking they want to, and jump into that journey of creating their own corporate accelerator? What are some of the key takeaways that you can provide them?
I think that first of all, launching an accelerator, it's an amazing experience. I run 2 cycles of the Innovation Studio, and every time it's amazing to see the quality of the people that you meet, not only the team members, but also all the mentors, the investor, the venture capitalist, and the people that approaches you to be part of this journey. So I will encourage definitely everybody to do so. One of the things that is very important is that managing an accelerator, you manage it by exception. You have never done it before, so you don't have the procedure. Nobody in your corporation, especially the support function like legal, compliance, procurement, have the procedure to support you. And therefore, every time there is a problem, it's an exception. So you need really senior management support. And I don't mean, the head of a business unit. I really need the board of your company, because usually these are the people that can make a phone call and say, hey, for this particular process, let's waive this procedure. So this is the learning number 1. Get your board support. We didn't have it for the first cycle. We had it for the second one, and it changed completely the speed. The second one, make sure you understand what you want to get out from it. From us, it was simple. We want internal ING unit to collaborate with startup. So we didn't want a solution at the end of the cycle. We wanted to start a collaboration. And therefore, we scheduled the 6 months with a lot of interaction between internal business unit and startups that we had. If you want to launch a service, then you definitely need a different approach.
Well, Daniele, I just want to thank you very much again for your time on the Inside Outside Innovation podcast. Again, loved your article. We'll make sure we keep sharing it. And if anybody has a desire to learn more, either about the ING Innovation Studio or yourself, what are the best ways for them to learn?
If you want to know more about the Innovation Studio, please go to www.innovationstudio.ninja. And actually, the ninja part, I would like to stress that, because we always say that, entrepreneur and entrepreneur should act like ninja. I don't know if you know the difference between the ninja and samurai, but the samurai is all about honor, playing, obeying the rules, following all procedure, while the ninja really wants to get things done. It doesn't matter how. Please get the result in the quickest way possible. And this is a great parallel that we make every time internal employees join. please forget about being a samurai. Now you are a ninja.
Great. So
and to be honest, the reality was that innovationstudio.com was already taken, and .ninja was way cheaper. So we
so you made up the good story to go with it. That's great.
Absolutely. And imagine when corporate comms gave us the okay to publish something
Ninja.
It was the biggest achievement, I think, of the accelerator.
Well, that's it for another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for tuning in. Reach out and let us know what you're thinking. Give us your feedback. You can reach us on Twitter at the IO Podcast. And if you have 30 seconds to spare, please, we'd love to hear from you on iTunes as well. Go over there, review us, give us an opportunity to earn your trust and business, and we'll talk to you later. Till next time, go out and innovate.